more of the same. Writing, running inversions, trying new hypothesis, writing again.
Did I detect a lack of enthusiasm there? Where's the gusto? Like, oh man, I'm running another inversion.
At some point you want to wrap up. Yeah. I don't think that in a day I didn't work on that for like 12 hours. That's 10 or 15 days. Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's 3 o'clock T-Bow time.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, happy writing.
I'm just trying to finish some edits here. We're getting through them, so it's good.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I had some time and I decided I wanted to go and work on the simulation PF stuff, finalize that so that it could ultimately get merged to the base simulation branch. And so over the earlier part this week, I kind of, with Dom's help, amalgamated what was the latest and greatest gravity and magnetics, and put that into a branch called Simulation PF Tutorials. So I've now brought them in and finalized the class structure for gravity and magnetics.
Brought them in where? I'm mapping. I have the tree in my head. We've got master, we have simulation PF, then we have simulation PF tutorials.
Yes. Okay. So,
So where are they now?
Yeah, we're in there. We're in there now.
Okay.
And so the class structure for gravity and magnetic simulations is organized in there. And we also have tutorials made for gravity, like just the forward modeling, gravity gradiometry, magnetics, and MVI with like tensor and octree mesh examples with including topography, all that stuff.
Awesome.
And so now we're just trying to find any of the tiny little remaining bugs or inconsistencies. And so one of them is trying to do modeling when you've got multiple receiver types. Maybe I want the X, Y, and the Z component of the field. So I've started to work on making some basic inversion examples and cleaning up the last bit of stuff, but I guess I feel we're quite close to being at a point where we could end up merging that into the base simulation branch.
Excellent.
So long story short, we've kind of basically finalized the gravity and the magnetics simulations, and for like the integral formulations, and then actually have some tutorials that we could then put on the website. They're basically at that point. So I think we're close to making this available to people if we wanted to.
That is really exciting. That's really exciting.
That's where we're at right now. So then the next step, I guess, is when I finish that to move on to another geophysical method.
Most of the rest are actually pretty close. So the work that I did earlier in the year on the simulation branch we got most methods are migrated over. So this, if we can sort of get hitting on a pull request there, and Dom, I don't know if you're game to maybe do a first iteration on that with Devin, and then I'm happy to jump in and we can try and push to get this going. Because it would be nice to get sort of the simulation branch merged early in the new year so that we can really start relying on it pretty heavily.
Yeah, I mean, that also will segue into what Doug is talking about today. So when we want to provide tools to people or tutorials, we would like to develop that for stuff based on the simulation branch and not our original framework.
Yeah.
That becomes increasingly important, in my opinion. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I ended up doing, so it's going well.
Right. I'm actually at the last stage of our second paper. We inverted the largest scale gravity data for the complete area, 200 kilometers to 200 kilometers. This is the second area that we are dealing with. And now at the last stage, I'm trying to use power spectral density to estimate the gravity interfaces. actually it's somehow can be constrain the inversion and see what happens. Because I did the upward continuation, if I can use this spectral density, then I can constrain the modeling, because for all inversion, we do not have any other a priori information to be used. And if we succeed in this stage, we can extract the best results from all inversion codes. Thanks.
I was cross-country skiing at Silver Star, Lindsay, for 10 days. How's that?
That sounds wonderful. I think you're winning, Max.
But I'm here to for the conversation about GWB.
Thanks for coming. Hi, Doug.
Oh, okay. I thought I was busted after having prolonged at the beginning. Actually, maybe I should pass it on to Dom, because there's quite a few things that I might want to say about the DC resistivity stuff, and we'll probably have an extended discussion on that. So,
Sounds good.
I'm helping Devon with PFs, and I think I still needed to review the DC or the simulation JK that has DC on it, which I haven't done, but I would just say I would probably suggest at this point let's just merge it in and fix any issues later, because he was pretty happy. It's all tested, and we were both happy with how it was running. So I would say if John gives a thumbs up, let's just merge it in.
Okay, I'll do maybe like a really light pass review on that, and just to have it in my head, and then yeah, then let's merge it in, and we can do a bit of a more thorough pass once we've actually consolidated everything.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks, John.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Lindsay won the site I posted on Slack, right? She won an award. You're bringing that.
whoa, the Lindsay that we know
Oh,
got won an award? Man, what are they doing these days? You don't know where you put it.
Suspense is killing us here, Dom.
It's killing
Yeah.
Drum roll.
Gerald. Here, the Gerald Pullman Memorial Trust Career Achievement Award.
Wow.
No,
That sounds very.
I don't think so. What happened there?
Right, Doug.
The Career Achievement Award?
Early, but yeah.
Where's it? Oh, early. Yes, I didn't see early. Was early there?
I think so.
I'm on the webpage, but I don't think they posted
Yeah, Career Achievement Award. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
For young sound.
Ah.
We're staring at it now.
Because, when you and Frank Morrison, there is a bit of an age difference.
Just a touch. Oh, thanks, John.
Congratulations, Vince.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, and hopefully that's, yes, I am very humbled to get to receive that. And I think it's a testament to a lot of the stuff we've done as a community, the fact that, all of this is being recognized, which is really cool. So I will spread the congratulations.
And electromagnetics, too. Pretty cool. What is that, anyway?
Good question, Doug. Didn't you lecture about that for a year?
No, somebody made up all the slides, so it didn't matter.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so the award was given at the AGU.
Yeah, on the Tuesday night next week. So.
That's great. We were all excited.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess a quick update from me. Mostly working on AGU stuff this week. So we're running a workshop on best practices for open source software. This one's more around like the community piece. And so we'll talk about things like testing and such. So we'll record it again, and I'm happy to circulate that. Then there's going to be a couple town halls on open source software. We're running one, and then there's also one being run by Leah Wasser, who's from CU Boulder, and she's running it on Pi OpenSci. So hopefully we'll get a useful collection of notes out of all of this, and I'll definitely pass that all along. So, yeah.
So, did Sagi say anything about joining?
No, I haven't seen. Let me see if he's online. I was hoping he would be here. So I just sent him a message so we can see if he's around. But if not, we can still plan some things out. I mean, we have a sense of what he's done, and so I think we can still get some planning in place and then connect with him asynchronously if he's not able to join.
Okay. Okay, so can I maybe just give an overview? Or,
Yeah, go for it.
oh, is that Sagi?
Yes, he is able to do it.
Let's just wait till he joins in.
So you have a joke? We're gonna wait.
Hey, Lindsay, are you, has anybody here actually been involved with Mozilla and their open source support and what they're trying to do?
So not directly, but I do know folks who are. So know a few folks at Mozilla, and also I don't know if this made the rounds on Twitter, but it might not have hit your radars. CZI, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, recently put out a big round of funding for basically core open source software packages in the scientific ecosystem. So Matplotlib got some funding. I think NumPy got some funding. Binder got some funding. So a few of those things. But do you have something specific in mind with Mozilla?
Well, I met somebody that become a friend because we were paddling with them this summer, and she works for the Mozilla Foundation that organizes the conferences that they do every year. And I tried to pin her down in exactly what areas that she's working in, whatever, could never get her to be specific. But I was just curious about whether they're into the scientific world or not, scientific and engineering.
A bit, and I know that they offer like an open, or at least they did a while ago. I don't know if the program is still running, but I'd imagine it might be an open source like software fellowship. So meant for folks who I believe are sort of in a postdoc role and basically want to spend half to 3/4 of their time developing software, and then also sort of taking on a leadership role in disseminating best practices and putting up tutorials and things like that. Yeah, so they had that like funding project out there, which seems like a cool opportunity.
Yeah, okay. I see Sagi there.
Hey, Sagi.
Hey, Zach.
Hi, Dak. Hi, all. Sorry for late. Daniel didn't sleep at all yesterday. It's just like.
I see. That's why you're looking so fresh.
Yeah. Oh.
Welcome to fatherhood.
Yeah. Thank you, Dak.
Okay, so let me, since time is moving along, let me just give a kind of a global update about where we are with the DC resistivity and the GWB project. So as you know, I went to Myanmar, talked both at the national and the state level, and so we now have a national program to implement. So basically the ideas that we were thinking about before will still hold, but we have some, I think a little bit more engaged people to interact with, which will be good. We're still planning to go. In fact, Max was just kind of setting a date to leave here on January the 30th and then spend 3 weeks there collecting data and teaching and training. So that's actually a pretty short time horizon if we want to think about getting material ready for them. The main interaction is going to be with what I hope will be 10 people. These will be the trainer of trainers. So these people will be hopefully trained well enough that when we leave, they will still be able to collect data and interpret the data and maybe interact with us back here with respect to problems or stuff like that. To get them kind of going, we actually need to be working with them prior to us arriving. So we're going to arrive at the beginning of February. We need to have identified those 10 people and be interacting with them prior to us coming. Now, the way to interact is probably through the data sets that they already have. So the national DRD has gone to various parts in Myanmar. They've collected VES data, and they've interpreted it somehow in 1D, and then they drilled and made some, had some successes. So we can actually build on that. Those data, I think we can get. In fact, I might have a hard copy printout of 1 or 2 of the survey lines. And I think what we should do from our end is to take the information that they've got as far as the geology and the hydrogeology, as well as the data, put it into our own inversion algorithm that Sagi has just developed, and write it up to see if we get essentially the same results. And then we could use those examples to submit these trainers in Myanmar, and they could start to kind of run them. So the idea in the best possible world is that they've already, by the time we go there, have seen some of their data run through an inversion code that is giving them some results. So even though they might really not know everything that we'd like to have them know about DC resistivity or inversion or anything like that, they'll at least have tried it and see, kind of had some experience with that. So that I think is a main goal, but that is, in order to accomplish that, we've got to really do a lot of stuff in the next month, which is kind of coming back to just talking to Devin about the potential for him getting on board, because we need more manpower. And yeah, so I think that would be a good exercise. And then that gets done in conjunction with using both the 1D and the 2D code as examples, put them into SimPEG, write some small case histories up for them. I mean, it's just everything all kind of fits together. It's just that the time scale for doing this is actually fairly soon.
And Doug, so you say you have some samples of data. Do you actually have samples of the file formats we're expecting, or you're going to parse something from a PDF into something custom? Because ideally, we now the entire workflow, if that makes sense.
Right. So right now, the only thing I have is a paper copy of some apparent festivities.
And
That's-
is that what we're expecting to work with in the future, or?
The formats, their formats should all be the IRIS format because
Okay.
that's all the systems that they have over there. So they'll be the star.bin type.
So Matt,
I'm not opposed to that, but I suppose.
even for like a VES measurement, are they using Iris?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what they had for their 4-pin measurement too.
Right. So Lindsay, then I think what we sort of structured was Iris has a software called Process. Then once you load in their data into Process, you can export that either in UBC format or in whatever. I think they have their own format as well. So yeah, once you have that, I mean, it's not a big deal to have a digitized data format.
Do we have to go through their software, like through Process, or can we just read in the file directly?
I think we probably need to do it because I'm not sure what their binary. Like, I'm pretty sure the initial format is binary format.
Binary.
I'm
Okay.
not sure how to read it.
Fair enough.
Max, you
I'll
probably
tell you
comments
that,
about that.
I'll tell you that in a second here as I just try to open one with Notepad or whatever. But it's a pretty easy software. It's free, and you just have to dump the stuff out right away if you want to, or you can use it to do some simple processing.
I mean, could we also write a one-liner that would do that transformation?
But it's definitely a binary data file, so you're gonna have to convert it out of the binary first.
Yeah, and Max, are there any, so if it's free software, is it like Windows specific or should it run on anything? Because sometimes.
Yeah, I think it probably Windows specific. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I would think so, yeah. And yeah, it is binary. It's not, you're not going to pull the data out
Okay.
of the original file.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I mean. So I guess I'm kind of curious if, so we want to go and transform it to another data format. Can we log on to Iris in some way and they've got some kind of online free converter? Is there something we download?
If you're running it, I can export and save into Elec Imager, UBC, Res2D, and Aarhus Workbench, etc. So it's basically you just have to open the file and then export it.
Export or like save as and then or export.
Yeah, it's to export and save. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just looking at it right
So
now.
then we could probably just write. We might be able to write like a one-liner as like a SimPEG utility to do that. Couldn't we?
You can do it as a spreadsheet too if you want. So.
And since it's a free piece of software that they're offering too, we might just be able to talk to the people at Iris and they might be willing to like let us look at the source code that's doing that conversion from the binary format to like our UBC format. And we might be able to write a Python version of that pretty easily, depending on what they're doing under the hood. But they might be willing to share that with us since they're offering the software for free anyways. I don't know.
My feeling at this point is that the data format is not the most important issue. I think what I'm concerned about is that we've actually got the inversion codes, both the 1D and the 2D, up and running and have tested them on quite a few different examples so that we feel like they're robust. I think these 1D, the examples of the 1D sounding are really good, could be used as good proof of product for Soggy's 1D code. And then we've got some 2D codes or 2D data sets that we can run on Soggy. So I think these are that's the level of problems that we need to worry about first, because
yeah, as long as we basically can assume that there is a way to get the data into UBC format, good enough. And if we need to do something more complicated, then we'll cross that bridge later.
And just so that I'm 100% sure what's going on with the 1D inversion, the forward problem is still 2D, but there's a mapping that goes from a layered earth to the mesh, or is it a fully 1D problem where there is some kind of forward modeling operation that solves for layers of particular thicknesses? Or is it just a mapping?
Sorry?
Yeah, so we have both. I mean, we're going to stick to the analytic solution one when we're actually suggesting to use them. We're suggesting like this, like TOT people.
And Sagi, where is that code right now?
It's in the DC 1D branch. So I
Of SimPEG?
yeah, in
Or-
SimPEG. So I branch it from simulation branch.
Yeah.
So it uses a simulation class. So there was one thing that I wanted to bring up today, because like now we need to decide, okay, where are we going to put everything, and just make sure that branch is updated to either simulation or master branch.
Yeah.
So yeah, my 2D one, I made some like update for the inversion print, because the current print is not very like intuitive for like a non-technical user. So yeah, so I want to put everything into one place because it's sort of scattered at the moment. So yeah, just wanted to bring up and decide.
Yeah, so let's start doing pull requests onto the simulation branch. If you can, keep the inversion pieces that you've done separate from the changes on the printing. If not, that's fine. But the printing we should fix, or at least for now have like a simple option. So we might want to iterate on what you've done slightly there. If it's all in one place, that's fine, and we can just deal with that pull request. But let's get it all into the simulation, and then basically have a goal that by perhaps the second week in January, simulation is the new master, and we get that released to the world.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think like everything that we build at this point is like tested and hit against the simulation branch.
Yeah, one thing that I was a bit worried, that simulation branch examples are not quite updated.
Right.
Is that okay?
Not for us to release it, no. So we need help to get those updated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So actually, Devin,
Yeah, as long as we got a plan to do that, I think I'm good to go.
Yeah.
If I can interject, I guess I'm finding with the tutorials that I've been making, in some ways they could be seen as a significant upgrade on some of the examples we have. I think, like there's some of the case history or published ones we should definitely be keeping, but we have a lot of redundant examples that are sitting in the gallery that they're now part of the tutorials that have been made. So as stuff gets finalized in simulation branch, and then a tutorial is made for that particular method, it could end up replacing a good portion of those examples.
Sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds good, Devin. And just like one thing with that is before you delete an example or anything like that, just touch base with whoever authored it and just make sure that we sort of captured the spirit of the example. But yeah, I think that sounds totally reasonable.
Yeah, and I like the idea of having sort of a general examples gallery of cool stuff. Right now it's sort of in an introductory kind of welcome to SimPEG thing where we're just showing lots of cool stuff you can do with it. So that gallery is sort of separate from the tutorials thing, and it hasn't been touched yet, but it's true. Yeah, I don't want to see anyone's work without kind of running it by them.
And one other quick update is I've been emailing back and forth with Kamini at School of Mines. She's really interested in getting up and running with SimPEG. I sent her some notebooks that she wants to like create some figures for an e-textbook that they're doing. And she is willing to basically help us write a like getting started guide, which is perfect because having somebody who is external sort of go through and say like, I don't know what I should be doing at this step, is wonderful. And so I'll keep everyone sort of posted as she sends stuff along. Right now, I think she's just kind of taking notes in a Google Doc, but yeah, that'll be a helpful resource for all of us.
Right. Sounds great. And another item that I was curious. So Doug, you mentioned that we have 10 people that we want to train before you go there.
Partially train, at least get very engaged with them. So we have the names of 5 people at this point. I've met 4 of them. They're young and they're interested. Yeah, one of the biggest difficulties that we've had always with Myanmar is getting communication.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm not really sure how best to really engage them or get interaction. But the idea is that we get them on board and get them doing something, like whether it's just finding the numbers for BES sounding, or just somehow having them contribute to writing a case history, or having like we could imagine a case history that we're just developing on a Google Doc that they can just add a little bits and pieces to, sort of the same thing that we were doing with the DIS. And just getting them to regularly interact via some mechanism like that. And so I think if each of them could be involved to the level that there's a particular data set that they have looked at and perhaps tried to invert, just 1D, and compare that with what the DRD whatever report they had was on that particular survey, then that would actually really set a good scene.
You could do it kind of like the MT-ZTEM training example, where so we start off with whatever data set that they had, and they kind of have an answer for it. They give it to us, and we've got a running Google Doc that they're all attached to, and they can see our progress. And these steps for how we worked through, uncertainties, we plotted up the data, we took a look, what did the apparent resistivities say, etc. And we go through, and then that just becomes the template for the case history. The guys at Rio are now just using that Google Doc as the practical workflow for running through their MT and Z10 inversions now.
That would be great. I think that would really work, Devin.
So we just have to start off with the data and then try to work through it in the same fashion.
Well, we can start off with a synthetic example. So you can just generate some data with your code and add a little bit of noise to it and carry through with that.
Yeah, just have a kind of, I'm curious, like what format could work for them. Is that like it's like an app, or more like a notebook or script format? I was just kind of curious, what's the level that we need to work with them?
Well, if I can make a DC resistivity or a DC IP tutorial, then Sphinx Galleries is going to auto-generate a notebook, Jupyter notebook. And they would be able to run it as a Jupyter notebook.
Yeah, in this case, what I think in a sense, maybe going for something, Soggy, similar to what we did for like the EM notebooks, like the 1DMT example, or the one where we walk through a frequency domain example, where it's very clear where the users should be inputting stuff and changing variables, inputting a file name and things like that. In this case with widgets and things like that, that's great, but it actually potentially limits what they're capable of doing down the road, is if they want to generate a quick plot of the data, or I don't know, do a different step early on, or if there was something strange in the file format and they need to fix something. If we have an app, they have to try and then go like under the hood to fix this stuff. Whereas if it's a very clean, very well documented notebook, it should be a little easier for folks to like jump in and tweak stuff as is necessary.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Does that seem reasonable, Doug and Max?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay.
And I think that's a way that we'd want to do anyway, right? So let's kind of work with that. And if things need to be, boxed up even more, then maybe that's required. But certainly that level of notebook would be great.
And what I would initially suggest for that is that we start a SimPEG research repository that has maybe 2 notebooks in it, is one for the 1D and one for the 2D. And yes, these could eventually be tutorials, but it would be very nice if basically the first set of instructions that you're giving people is basically just download these set of notebooks and run the installation. And that'll install SimPEG for you and everything. They don't have to go to the website and like figure out which ones to download. Does that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay. Because then what we can do in that repository as well is include a couple sample data files that are specific to this project, whereas we won't do that in the SimPEG documentation. I mean, we might provide an example where you download the data from somewhere and but it's a little easier and cleaner if we can basically set up almost a sandbox of like, this is actually what your day-to-day work will look like, and then go from there.
The question here, has anybody here run commercial software, DC and UBC software? Mike, have you done that? Did you ever run Res2D in for any of the others?
I mean, it's been years. I've run the UBC ones.
Well, it's 10 years since I've run the UBC ones. And the one thing about the commercial software that's available is it's fairly straightforward, although it doesn't tell you where you're getting yourself into trouble because of the front end, right? So that's my only concern, is that it be something that if people buy, people unfamiliar with the pitfalls.
I think most of those apps in notebook widget type things they should be comparable.
Okay, and I'd be able to tell you that now that I'll try some of it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think your input, Max, on that will be really, really important.
Yeah. And just like use commercial software, they like you can just input the data and they're gonna choose the parameters, generate the mesh for you, etc. So and I don't know how those apps are done. Like if you input a different data set than the one that was tested on, if it's gonna adapt the mesh and the parameters to the new data set.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
most of them, a lot of them you have to read in a mesh too. You have to read in a data set, you have to read in a mesh and do something.
Res2D, like you can just input the data and it's gonna create a mesh for you, and like if you don't specifically ask for it, you just never see it. Which is dangerous, but like somebody can just say like load data, convert done. But then
Well, we did that with our UBC code at one point too. Yeah.
well, the
It actually
2D code works a bit like that. So you can have like a default mesh, etc.
yeah, so in this case, Max, your input will be critical for figuring out what's the right sort of level of abstraction to pose to users. Because even if we don't have like sort of auto mesh generation and stuff plugged into SimPEG, that's actually something that we can include in a small lightweight repository that's specifically for this project. And then we can figure out later on how that best fits within SimPEG. But by having sort of a project repository here, we can make a point of abstracting away things that are too detailed and are not helpful for users to be seeing.
Well, SimPEG DC has those like auto generator. So the current 2D app basically takes the data, and then once you got that data in, and you're done. So you just need to put the inversion parameter and run. Yeah, it's kind of similar to, let's say, Res2D in whatever commercial software. Yeah, so that's a question. Okay, what are we going to like expose them? Like, we ask them to generate the mesh or not? So we just need to make some decisions.
Yeah, so Sagi, with the notebooks that you've written for this, would you be game to start a small repository, and I can work with you to get that up and running on Binder?
Yeah.
And then once we have it up on Binder, then we can pass it around to Doug and Max, and we can sort of get start getting input and just slowly iterate on this, because it'll take time for us to harden it.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I'll do that. So I worked on sort of two versions. One is just like a kind of typical one, the kind of fixed number of layers, let's say 20 layers, and basically inverting for discretized resistivity values. And the other version, I think that's what Kevin is doing. So you can invert for either resistivity and the thickness. So yeah, I got two versions. So we can kind of play with that.
Sounds good. Doug and Max, are there other things? I mean, so getting the notebooks up and running is probably mission critical before Christmas. Are there other things that you see as other like critical pieces?
From the SimPEG perspective, those are definitely the main ones. There's quite a few other kind of ancillary things that we need to kind of make sure that we've taken care of, and put some thought into really getting true interaction with the group there, and getting the data, and just really getting involvement. But those are a little bit perhaps outside the scope of this meeting.
Okay. I think one thing that we should think through, and I will try and get the discourse page up and running in the next few weeks. It'll probably be after AGU. But is what sort of communication lines do we want folks using while you're there? And also like what are we going to sort of maintain and such afterwards? I think discourse could be a good place. Or we can set up sort of a separate Slack channel. I don't really know, but that's something perhaps to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think there will be, at least actually I'm hoping there will be a fair bit of interaction from their part to us after we because we're only going to be there 3 weeks. Well, somebody is going to be staying there longer. But really, there's going to be questions that arise, and there's going to be problems that arise, and they need a way to answer them, and they're not going to have the technology or the expertise within the country themselves, so they need to somehow go elsewhere. It's kind of what the whole aspect of open source really is, especially when you have emerging countries, because within the country itself, they just don't have that, expertise, or at the universities, they reach that ceiling where, the profs don't know anything else. They expanded what they have. And so the students or the practitioners need to have a way of jumping around over top of those ceiling barriers and get some information. So I think this is actually like just a great kind of prototype for a lot of things that we intend to do. So I expect that there will be a fair bit of communication afterwards saying, look, we had troubles here, or how do we do this, or how do we understand this? And so thinking that will be the case, let's kind of try to plan on that.
That sounds good. One other quick note is I'm going to try and be in Vancouver the first full week of January, so like January 6th, that week. And so hopefully we can use that as a bit of a chance to like consolidate all the stuff we've done in the simulation and then iterate on some of these things too. So, because it will be a big push to get everything ready for January 30th.
And that is actually a perfect time, because by the end of that week, we should pretty much, we definitely want to have virtually all the material that is going to be in Myanmar, which includes the codes and all of the slides and whatever else we've got. So that's perfect timing.
Another point I'll bring up too is that we're sitting here talking, they are going to have to use process at some point in time, because in fact, taking the data and not knowing the quality of the data or issues about the data that was collected by an instrument, process gives you a lot. I emailed you and Sagan and Doug examples of the output to the UBC export, and essentially all it gives is position of the 4 electrodes, V over I, and the deviation measurement that IRIS do. Whereas in process, you've got what's happening with the transmitter battery and the injection and receiver battery, so you know whether your battery has kept up. You get the SP values. There's other things like that you get that are critical to evaluating the data set too. So it's going to have to be a combination of the process and whatever is on SimPEG, because I don't think we're going to try to do that in SimPEG.
Not in a month.
Nope.
Yeah, fair enough. Perfect. Any other last things before we wrap up? I guess this might be, at least for me, probably the last meeting I will be able to make this year. 'Cause next week is AGU, and then I'm traveling the following week. So folks are still absolutely welcome to meet, and I'll watch you afterwards. But if not, then we'll wish you a Merry Christmas and be in touch on Slack.
Wow.
Whoa, Merry Christmas! Like what? I'm not.
I know.
I am so not prepared for that. Okay, she's got spirit of fun.
In the future, we don't have to say that now.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. She's
I have a
not so
tree.
prepared. I see. It's beautiful.
Who's coming AGU from UBC?
I'm going.
Okay,
So,
I see.
Ren was initially planning to go, but then because we didn't get the data done or anything like that, we'll postpone her till next year.
Sounds good.
Oh, everybody else just wants to keep writing papers. I can't believe it.
Oh, wow. Very productive.
Well, good luck, everyone.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
I like your tree, Soggy.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Is there another side to it, or